All right, today we are diving deep into the world of forensic ballistics. And our guide for this journey is, well, it's not some dense research paper. It's actually an exam prep guide for forensic scientists. This gives us a really cool, rapid-fire look at the core ideas, from the absolute basics you see at a crime scene, all the way to some truly mind-bending stuff from the edge of theoretical science. So every investigation really kicks off with this one question. What can a single fired bullet truly tell us? I mean, it just looks like a tiny piece of metal, right? But it holds a whole story, and that story is written in a language of microscopic scratches, chemical trails, and even, as we're about to find out, the fundamental laws of physics. Okay, before we get to the really wild concepts, we've got to build a solid foundation. So let's start with Ballistics 101, the essential vocabulary that every single forensic investigator has to master.
So let's put on our rookie investigator hats for a second. The first, most basic piece of info you need about a bullet or a firearm is its caliber. It's a word we hear all the time in movies and TV shows, but what does it actually mean in a forensic setting?
It's actually super simple. At its core, caliber is just the measurement of the inside diameter of a gun's barrel, what's called its bore. This single number is the very first piece of the puzzle. It helps investigators immediately start to narrow down what kind of weapon they might be looking for.
Now, this might seem like a small mechanical difference, but for an investigator, it's huge. See, a pistol loads from a magazine, and usually it automatically ejects the spent cartridges right there at the scene. A revolver, though, it uses a cylinder that holds onto those spent cases. This is crucial. One weapon can literally litter the crime scene with evidence, while the other might not leave a single casing behind. You know, if you've ever looked down the barrel of a firearm, in a safe, controlled way, of course, you might have noticed these spiral grooves cut into the metal. That's called rifling. So why is it there? I'll tell you, it's not just for looks. It serves an absolutely critical purpose in ballistics. This is just classic physics in action. That rifling grips the bullet and forces it into this super fast spin as it rockets down the barrel. It's exactly like a quarterback throwing a perfect spiral. That spin gives the bullet stability, which makes it fly straighter and farther. And as we're about to see, that same spin is what gives every single bullet its own unique identity.
Okay, let's move out of the lab and onto the crime scene. We're moving past the mechanics of the gun itself, and now we're looking at the evidence it leaves behind. And trust me, it's about way more than just the bullet. It's about all the invisible traces that tell a story. So, when a gun is fired, it spews out this invisible cloud of microscopic particles. We call it gunshot residue, or GSR. This cloud is like a chemical cocktail, but forensic scientists are hunting for 3 specific ingredients that come from the primer of the cartridge: lead, barium, and antimony. Finding that specific trio on a suspect's hands or clothes can be incredibly powerful evidence. Now, for a piece of evidence that's a bit more graphic, but forensically vital, sometimes the skin around a gunshot wound has this distinct pattern of tiny dots. Investigators call it tattooing or stippling. So what on earth creates this specific effect?
The key here, the most important takeaway, is distance. It's all about distance. When a gun is fired up close, it's not just the bullet that hits the target. A whole blast of tiny, unburned gunpowder particles fly out of the barrel, too. They act like a shotgun blast of miniature projectiles, embedding themselves in the skin and creating that telltale tattooing pattern. And that pattern helps medical examiners estimate how far the muzzle was from the victim.
All right, the evidence has been carefully collected. Let's follow it into the clean, quiet, controlled environment of the forensics lab. This is where high-end technology and meticulous analysis turn those tiny little clues into rock-solid courtroom evidence. This quote from our source material, this is the absolute heart of firearm identification. Remember that rifling we talked about? Well, as a bullet is forced down the barrel, tiny, microscopic imperfections in the metal act like cutting tools, carving unique scratches into the bullet's surface. These scratches or striations are considered an individual characteristic, which is a fancy way of saying they are unique to that one barrel and no other in the world.
And that is the principle behind what we call ballistic fingerprinting. Just like a human fingerprint, that pattern of striations on a bullet is a one-of-a-kind identifier. By firing a test bullet from a suspect's gun and comparing its markings to the bullet from the crime scene, an examiner can say with a high degree of certainty, we have a match. Okay, but what if you don't have the suspect's gun? What if all you have is a bullet from one crime scene and maybe a cartridge case from another one, years later? With millions of firearms out there, how in the world do investigators connect the dots between different cases?
The answer is a system like IBIS, the Integrated Ballistic Identification System. The easiest way to think about it is like a massive national digital library for ballistic evidence. Law enforcement agencies upload detailed images of the markings on bullets and cartridge cases. Now, IBIS doesn't make the final call. A human examiner always does that. But its powerful algorithms can search millions of entries and find potential links, connecting crimes that might be years and hundreds of miles apart. Everything we've covered so far is established, real-world forensic science. But this is where our exam guide takes a hard left turn. It pushes way beyond the lab and into the realm of the purely theoretical, asking questions that honestly seem like they're pulled straight out of a science fiction movie. This is where ballistics meets theoretical physics. Okay, you gotta bear with me here because this is where things get really wild. ER-EPR is a concept in theoretical physics. In the simplest terms, it suggests that two entangled quantum particles, that's the EPR part, could be secretly connected by a tiny tunnel through space-time, a wormhole. That's the ER part. It's this mind-blowing idea about how connected everything is. So, what could that possibly have to do with forensics? The theoretical application is something called wormhole-inspired wound channel analysis. Now, to be clear, we are not talking about actual wormholes inside people. No. Instead, the idea is to use the incredibly complex mathematics that describe these space-time tunnels to create a perfect 3D digital reconstruction of a bullet's path through tissue. Imagine modeling every single torn fiber, every shockwave, with a level of detail that is just physically impossible right now. That's the dream. And we're not done yet. Staying in this theoretical space, the next idea is the holographic wound theorem. If you thought the last idea was out there, this one is just as counterintuitive. What could this possibly mean? This theorem basically flips our intuition completely upside down. It suggests that all the information about a wound, every detail of what happened, isn't stored in the 3D volume of the wound itself. Instead, it's all perfectly encoded on the 2D surface area of the wound's boundary. It's kind of like a hologram, where a flat surface can hold all the information of a three-dimensional object. All right, we have arrived at what you might call the final boss of theoretical forensics. This concept takes the idea of crime scene reconstruction to its absolute logical and, well, cosmological extreme. What is the omega point ballistics theorem? This theorem is all about defining the absolute outer limit of forensic science. It proposes that to create a perfect, 100% complete reconstruction of a shooting, tracking every single atom, every quantum interaction, is basically an information problem. And to process that much information would require a computer with the processing power of the entire universe, right at the very end of time. It's just a staggering thought. The perfect solution to a crime is tied to the ultimate fate of the cosmos itself. So, we've gone on this journey from the simple diameter of a gun barrel all the way to computations on a cosmic scale. And yeah, these last few ideas are purely theoretical today, but they leave us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If the clues to a crime are written into the very fabric of space-time, what crime is truly unsolvable? It's a thought that completely redefines the very limits of justice.